Greetings and bienvenue, did you hear? I know it's been a while, but the past week or so has been a bit busy, so wasn't able to get my thoughts out on episode 3 when it was relevant. So I decided, hey, let's make this a double episode, since I already mentioned in my first video that this was a likely possibility. If you guys do enjoy this format, please do tell me in the comments below. I'd really like to know what you guys generally think, and while you're at it, it wouldn't hurt to just drop a like or hit the subscribe button. I can only improve these videos so much without knowing what my audience wants from me. It would be a real big help to the channel. With those plugs aside, I really want to get into the meat potatoes of these episodes. This is episode 3 and 4 of Kamen Rider Geats. Since we're covering 2 episodes at once, I'm not going to go about this like I did my previous vid. So, in the interest of time and my own sanity, I'm going to go about the plots of these episodes at once. Starting with episode 3, the basic premise is that Ace ends up meeting Neon at a cafe, getting roped in with her guards thanks to her revealing her location. This of course leads to a chase, with Ace thankfully helping Neon escape. But this is where we find out about the next round of the DGP starting. The goal for this round is now, as a team, to survive a 3-wave assault of zombies and make it till the end. Rankings are determined by points earned by how well you perform. The lowest ranked player gets eliminated. The real kicker though is that they can still get infected by the zombies and are liable to join their ranks and potentially have their points changed as a result. The episode makes it very clear from the start that this is just going to be an all-action episode. Early in the episode, they already start their transformations and start the fights immediately. And while most of the riders seem to be holding their own, with Keiwa even finding ways to rack points through side objectives like rescuing people and getting boost yet again, Nago seems to struggle, as she's not able to fight off as efficiently as the others, only surviving due to the fact that she was saved by Geats. The first round ends, and we see that she is at the bottom. While they're all in the lounge, we learn a bit more about the riders, with Nago feigning that she joined the game to find her true love. In order to try help herself, she does try to get loot boxes, but unfortunately the butler tells her that they're just cosmetic only. This kind of attitude actually ends up pissing off Dapan, who is now completely convinced that she is a spoilt brat who very clearly does not want to take this game seriously. He ends up deciding to make a deal with Buffa to loan his Magnum buckle when the time comes, since Buffa had to give his zombie buckle to Geats at the end of the first round due to having a bet with him and losing. The second wave promptly arrives. Dapan lures Nago to a horde of zombies only to be saved by Geats again. Funnily enough, he actually ends up being able to attack Dapan without losing points, because of the fact that he was infected in the first round. Dapan at this point pretty much loses it and reveals his true colors. He joined the Desire Grand Prix to eliminate all humans due to the nihilistic attitude he gained from an accident that only got worse after seeing people look the other way only to care about superficial things like Neon's channel. But before anything else could come from this, the round ends and we find out that Neon also got infected in the fight, which then leads into episode 4. The next episode starts with Nago and Dapan being restrained for being zombies, with Geats and Tycoon being the only ones willing to help them. After getting out and ending up in the park, Neon ends up being taken by her guards, and her mother slaps her when Neon reprimands her for going to places that couldn't be tracked with a GPS. This in turn reveals that her possessive nature is born out of a fear of her getting kidnapped again, like she was when she was a child. After learning about this complete breach of privacy, Nago decides to escape, and after a pep talk from Ace and Keiwa, gets the motivation to be able to fight on until she can at least survive the end of the round. The final wave arrives and the riders are all scattered across the map, with Buffa finally making use of the Magnum buckle he got from Dapan, revealing that Dapan knew when he was affected, and decided to give it to Buffa just to get back at the other riders. Neon, on the other hand, is now able to use the boost buckle that Keiwa had given her earlier in the episode, with Armed Hammer, and finally gets enough points to survive the effects of the zombification and even move up from last place. Dapan, on the other hand, gets completely turned, and as a result, he pretty much just decided to give up trying to win. Inevitably, he gets eliminated, promising that the riders will suffer for this, and the episode ends with Neon gaining the confidence to stand up to her mom, and the masked man from episode 1 giving a premonition about the potential final battle Geats and Buffa will have. Okay, I really hope I don't have to make this a regular thing, because that was a fucking mouthful. There's gonna be a lot of audio editing from this. Since we didn't get into any new significant characters this time, I decided I would start talking about the characters we do have within the plots of the episodes. These 2 episodes do a lot to finally give us a closer look as to why Neon is the way she is. The previous episodes establish her character as a reversal of Keiwa. She's a rich girl who has the freedom to get what she asked for, but unlike Keiwa, isn't content with her life, as she's always living under the watch of her mother and lacks the free spirit that Keiwa or even Ace have as a result of their different circumstances. These episodes do a good job of rationalizing Neon's decision to join the Grand Prix by having her want something that isn't just a physical concept like money. The freedom she truly desires, and the true love excuse she uses to hide this desire, are vague concepts she knows are not definitive things she can have realistically. This isn't something she can ask for and get on a plate, which is another great parallel to Keiwa's wish for world peace, since that's also a very vague goal coming from an earnest place that has no real discernible way to be immediately given to you on a silver plate. This kind of similarity highlights how the two people, despite their circumstances, are perfect candidates for the DGP. They're idealistic people who want their vague goals to be realized, even if it costs them their lives or may not be realistic. This is something all the characters would need to have in a game like this, since this kind of naivety is exactly why Neon was able to keep going past the last round, despite the fact that the infection was nearly completely taking over. This contrasts beautifully with Dapan, who as a character establishes himself as a complete nihilist who, instead of writing down a desire that would allow himself to be content in a world where he was healed from his accident, he'd rather drag everyone down to the same miserable place that was subjected to him. This is even driven further with how the beginning of the episode has him looking at his bag with the magnum buckle inside of it, very clearly making a reference to school shooters. His desires are so much more definitive and direct compared to the other characters. He wants a world with no humans. A goal that is just as unrealistic as Keiwa, but one that is bent around a desire that seeks to completely negatively affect everyone around him. And like Neon, his desires were motivated by the personal motivation to escape his circumstances. However, instead of wanting to live in a world where he could have never had his accident and could still live as he was before, he decided to instead let his anger out on the world. He wasn't fighting to protect an idea or make the world a place he could thrive in. He just fought for a hollow end. He's a bitter person, and unlike everyone else, he's only doing this for an immediate result that'll eventually die down when he realizes how lonely he'll be. His goal is clearly something he's not capable of fighting for in the long term, because this game requires at least some level of team play and the ability to look out for your teammates' life as well as your own whenever the circumstances are tough. Yes, you are going to have moments where you work on your own, but this is a game in the end of the day, and you're going to be forced to work with some of your other players sometimes. And this is only further pushed by the fact that his goal is motivated by a petty burst of nihilism that exists only to rationalize his fucked up sense of righteousness over people like Neon, who didn't choose to be in their circumstances, or Keiwa, who fights in the DGP despite them. What is he going to do after his world is made? He couldn't possibly know what would happen next. He floundered in the game around the last rounds with no genuine motivation to fight, or because he wasn't fighting for anything to protect. He had no desire to actually fight seriously because he already gave up the minute he was infected. I genuinely think that the contrast between these characters is so perfect for the series because it already shows how messed up human desires can be and how they can harm a person and their surroundings. It feels fitting when Dapan finally gets eliminated, and I was right in my prediction that he would be the next one to go, though whether or not he's actually dead is something else altogether. The term elimination is quite vague, because even in Japanese, when I heard the word, it wasn't exactly definitive. The other good thing about this episode is that Neon's mother is also given a bit more context in these episodes, and we see why Neon wanted to leave in the first place. While justified in her concern for her daughter, her mother is not justified in her complete lack of care for the feelings of Nago at all. Instead of letting her move on from what happened as a child, she uses the experience of what happened to her as the basis for how she would then proceed to treat her daughter, ironically doing more to push her away than keep her safe. The series is honestly doing so well having its characters have this many layers early on, and I'm hoping we do get a Buffa episode soon so we can finally get an understanding as to why he's so desperate to beat Geats. Okay, I've overanalyzed the crap out of this episode, but I really want to talk about the fights now. Yet again, the series is doing everything possible to make these fights as dynamic as they can. Geats uniquely uses the water buckle again by flooding the room full of zombies for one thing, but we also get to see him finally use Buffa's main buckle, Zombie. The last scene in episode 3 was a joy to watch, not only to see Geats get to lay the smackdown on the hordes, as well as Dapan, but also get to be more close quarters with his foes now that he's using the chainsaw sword instead of a gun. The rider kick he did was also an absolute joy to see. It was really dynamic and quick with the huge run-up. I think this is also the first kind of rider kick that's a crouching roundhouse kick. It's cool to see, I'd like to see more of these. Even other riders get to do more with the buckles, with Nago finally getting boost in episode 4, and making the hammer into a rocket mallet twice her size, and Buffa, who finally gets to use Magnum and show off a bit more long-range playstyles. Even outside of the actual fights themselves, the idea of having a side objective does wonders for the immersion of the game's rules, since it means that it does operate on real-life game logic, where the side objectives aren't common, but can give you points you would have otherwise never received from wasting time on small fry. I love the contrast between Taiku doing these side quests because he genuinely wants to help people, and Mary, being the coward he is, doing it because Keiwa told him that it was a good source of points, and goes out of his way to find these side objectives just to avoid fighting. Generally though, the fight scenes are continuing to keep this high bar that Geats has already set for the first 2 episodes, and I'm hoping this still remains a constant by the time we get to episode 5, since we're finally getting Boost Magnum for Geats again, and I'm really wanting to see more of that combo in action. Though I am surprised that we are getting a big confrontation between him and Buffa so soon, if the masked dude is to be believed. We'll just have to wait and see to see what the series holds. If Geats will continue to kick ass, what are the game's true intentions, and what is the deal with the bears in this show constantly getting the L's? Until next time, folks, see ya! Hey, if you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing and pressing the bell for notifications. I'm really looking forward to growing this channel and would love some feedback. Hopefully you enjoyed what you've seen. So long!